Hi everybody, this is Tony Redmond, and with me today I've got Michael van Horenbeeck and Jeff Guillet. We're going to have a little review here of what's happened at the Microsoft Ignite conference in Chicago. It's just finished. We've just literally come away from a session, and I think there's a lot of very interesting things were announced during the week, including a new version of Exchange and Exchange in Azure and various other bits and pieces. But let's see what Jeff thought. What was the best thing what was the most important message maybe for Exchange admins that came out of this week?
Well, I think the most important thing that admins can take away from this was the preferred architecture has been updated for 2013 and 2016. I think that Ross's session there was really on target, and there are some subtle changes from what it was last year.
You say prescriptive. Are we being really definite about this?
Yeah, Microsoft is definitely moving toward a very preferred architecture. It's not the only architecture that they support, but it is the one that they do prefer. It's the most tested, and it gives you the best high availability and resilience with your Exchange deployment.
And the core parts of that architecture?
For no DAGs, keep it symmetrical, make sure that everything is on the latest updates. It's very prescriptive. They are very much pushing toward the JBOD model.
Right.
And they're being very vocal about that this is the right way to deploy Exchange. It's all about capacity, not about performance. And that model is what they use in Office 365, and it's very successful there, and they want you to deploy it the same way on-prem.
So basically what you're saying is that there's been a prescriptive architecture around for a while, but now Microsoft is really getting tough about it, in fact, and is being emphatic.
Yes, yeah, they want you to be successful with it, so they're making this preferred architecture. They're being more prescriptive about their preferred architecture.
Okay, so that was the best thing that you got, the most important thing that came out for you. Michael, what about you?
So I might be a little bit biased, but the hybrid configuration wizard, the standalone hybrid configuration wizard, definitely is something that caught my attention. Because it solves a bunch of problems they had in the past. Last year, Microsoft broke the hybrid experience a few times.
Yes, indeed.
And by pulling it out from the Exchange bits and pieces and having a web-based configuration wizard, they can update what the wizard does continuously without having you to require a new version of Exchange on-premises, without you having to deploy a cumulative update, which is definitely a good thing, because some customers last year had to wait a few weeks before they got a hotfix or they could deploy a new CU, and during that time they were left out in, I'm not going to say in the cold, but there's nothing much they could do, whereas this will allow Microsoft to move forward faster, and I really like it.
Okay, so the headline item for the Exchange community was the announcement, the formal announcement. We had already got a couple of leaks. The leaks, I got to say, weren't particularly interesting about Exchange 2016, but they were leaked anyway. We got a lot more information this week. What do we think? Is it really just Exchange 2013 with a little bit of fresh paint and a bit of more sparkle, or is it a new architecture? Jeff?
From an architecture standpoint, it's very much similar to 2013. There are some new features that are added in, like the cloudy docs and collaboration. Those are going to be very welcome.
You might want to explain to people what cloudy docs
mean. Cloudy docs are when you do an attachment. In the old way of doing an attachment, the way that we know about it now, is you have an email and you attach a document to it, and that attachment is sent to the recipients. Cloudy attachments are kind of a hybrid of that. What you're able to do is when you send an attachment, Outlook will determine that you have the infrastructure to support it, basically SharePoint, and what it gives you the option of sending it as a online attachment, where the attachment is put into SharePoint and is replaced with a link. Users are able to then access it from a single source And they can also give you're able to set the rights on that attachment. And if you give multiple users rights to edit that document, they can both edit it simultaneously, or up to, I'm not sure how many people, but I've heard up to 8 would be able to actually work collaboratively on that document in SharePoint.
Okay, but anything else that caught your eye in 2016? It seems like there's a lot of technology transfer back from the experience of running Exchange Online at massive scale. And a lot of tweaking and automation finding its way in around the DAG area.
Well, the DAGs are going to be much more efficient and performant. The failover is now going to be under 18 seconds for a failover, and IOPS have been reduced another 33%, which means you can basically run Exchange on Twitter.
I was thinking on a bunch of USB drives.
Oh yeah, sure, floppies.
Let's bring back floppies. That would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, what do you think about 2016?
So
what do you see in there?
What I particularly like is the upgrade experience, whereas before going from one version of Exchange to another required a lot of planning, namespace planning, for instance.
Yep.
Whereas now you could just literally throw in a bunch of Exchange 2016 servers, provided that you have Exchange 2013 already, and then just have them talk to one another, up-level proxying, down-level proxying, which will greatly simplify getting to Exchange 2016, which is a very good thing, I believe. Takes away some of the complexities. On the other hand, what we see again with Exchange 2016 is that for some of the functionalities, it requires other 2016 versions on premises, which creates another complexity for customers.
Like cloudy attachments.
Like cloudy attachments, SharePoint 2016, web server, or whatever they're going to call it.
Office Apps Server.
Office App Server, there you go. All new versions. So while it is easier to deploy to Exchange 2016, there's other stuff that come into play. So
well, you say easier to deploy, but you still got to deal with the fact that you're probably going to have an operating system upgrade. You're definitely going to be deploying it on new servers because there's no in-place server. And for DAGs, you're still going to have to be building new DAGs, right?
Sure, but in earlier versions, and that's especially comparing to earlier
I think you're
migrations,
focusing on protocol interoperability,
interoperability,
and proxying, and connection stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
but protocol cutover is one of the most user-facing parts of a deployment, and if you can reduce that by just dropping them in, that's a huge win.
Yes.
I do want to point out there is an architectural change in that in the past, if you had Office Web App servers, the CAS role would proxy for those. In 2016, they will no longer proxy. There will be a redirect. And then what that means is if you're using Office Web App servers, you now have to publish those to the internet. That means new natting rules, new certificates, because that SSL traffic needs to be encrypted.
Right.
And but it does add some functionality where they're able to edit documents within Office Online.
Yeah, just thinking about those cloudy attachments for a moment, because I know you're very taken by them.
No, but
you mentioned you brought them up.
They're an interesting new option.
Well, I'm kind of interested. Microsoft has got this little dichotomy going on because, on the one hand, in Office 365, they're giving you 150 meg message size, allows you to send half a DVD around, and on the other side, they say, "Oh no, we're doing all these modern."
I can go bigger
attachments.
than that on-prem, though.
Oh, I bet you can go bigger than that on-prem, but I didn't ask that question.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It just seems a little bit strange. What about the other announcement that was made? This thing about Exchange now being supported on Azure. It's not particularly earth-shattering news because Amazon Web Services have formally supported Exchange on their platform since Exchange 2010. But now Microsoft is kind of like the virtual machines war being run again. Microsoft has come and they now support it on Azure. Do we think this is any way at all interesting?
I have trouble finding a use case for that. Michael mentioned perhaps for a customer who's entirely bent on getting off-prem, they can put their hybrid server in the cloud. To run Exchange in the cloud is very limited and so expensive. It to me, it's
Exchange is a pretty compute
yeah,
beast, isn't
yeah,
it?
and
It
even
uses
while it's
lots of
sitting
network.
there and you're not using it, it's using compute and disk.
Well,
and
you got all
that's-
those background
yeah,
assistants
Right.
doing stuff, yeah?
exactly. So it for me, I don't see a good use case for it, and it's for customers who have more money than sense.
Well, so an interesting exercise in computer technology, but not much practical benefit.
Yeah, science experiment.
A
but-
science experiment. Well, do you agree, Michael?
Yeah, for the most part, I believe. I mean, there's no real reason to be running Exchange in Azure other than experimenting with it. I've been running Exchange servers in Azure for testing purposes, which
Right.
works really well. And then, of course, you don't need the Azure Premium storage to do that, which is going to take up quite a bit of the cost. The only use case, as Jeff already said, where I can see Azure being beneficial might be, and it's to be seen what the cost would be at the end of the month of running your hybrid server there after you migrated everyone to Office 365.
Right.
But other than that, I can't see anything that would make.
So we're still saying that there's nothing like the cold comfort of a nice, solid, physical mailbox server.
Yeah, if you if you really want to get everything into the cloud, if you're considering running Exchange on Azure, you're probably an Office 365 customer.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I mean, if you are going to embrace the cloud, why wouldn't you be
Yeah,
all in the cloud
exactly.
and go with Office 365 and let Microsoft take care of all of that mundane server management and all
Right.
the stuff?
There is the case to be made that you could, if you're a single site and you're looking for a disaster recovery site and you don't have, it is a lot. Azure is going to be very expensive. It's not as expensive as breaking ground on a new data center.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
So that is a possibility. If that's a requirement and you don't have another data center to go to, it's an option.
So, Jeff, one of the things that you said to me earlier on today that took your attention took your notice was that the very substantial percentage of on-premises customers that were represented here at Ignite. I mean,
Yeah.
so every time you asked people to put up their hands to say who was on-prem and who was in the cloud, it was pretty noticeable, wasn't it?
It was pretty staggering, actually. I had a lot of Microsoft people come to me and say, we had no idea there were going to be so many Exchange on-prem customers. When we had an experts panel on Wednesday where I was the moderator, but the Exchange team product group was the panel, I asked that of the group, and how many people are solely in the cloud?
Right.
And about a dozen hands went up, and I said, who is on-prem and intends to stay on-prem? And almost the entire room raised their hand.
Wow.
And
We're talking a big room here.
and we're talking, yeah, it was about 400 people.
Okay, so that's a good.
And these sessions that had that were based around on-prem, this just goes to the planning for Ignite. The rooms were way undersized for the number of
We'll come back
attendees.
to Ignite in a moment, but
Yeah.
I am interested in that observation that the percentage of on-prem customers here
Right.
was so high. Specifically because when you take another statistic, which is that 90+% of Ignite attendees are from North America.
Mhm.
And yet North America is meant to be the prime driving market for this
Yeah.
cloud adoption.
Well, it's a huge market.
Yeah, it's,
So, it's enormous, right?
You're right. Okay, but when you look at various, and the
Yeah.
statistics can prove anything, but when
Right.
you look at it, you've got 90% of the 22,000 people here represent the North American market.
Right.
You go into the show, you go into the sessions, and you find out that 80% of the people in the room are on-prem. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
There's still a hell of a lot of on-prem there out there.
Exactly.
Yeah, even though, on the other hand, you take another statistic, you look at Microsoft's financial results, and you see that they are gaining
Sure.
traction there.
Oh yeah,
In the cloud, I mean.
that's what I'm saying. There, it's an enormous market, and even if they get a small market share, it makes a huge difference. Imagine if they owned all of it.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, that would just be staggering.
Yeah. So, Michael, did you see the same type of thing?
Well, yes and no. Of course, there were a lot of on-premises customers still, but my point of view is more from a hybrid point of view. Of course, again, I'm a little bit biased there, but in the session I had on Wednesday with Timothy Heaney, we asked the question about how many people were in hybrid mode, and almost the entire room, which is about 400 to 500 people, raised their hands that they were either already in hybrid, planning to stay in hybrid, or looking into going hybrid, in the next few months. But the thing that most people forget is that a lot of companies do not only use hybrid to move to Office 365, a lot of them stay hybrid, which means that the on-premises component will remain.
Yeah.
That kind of adds fuel to the discussion, because those customers might stay for on-premises for the next 10 years with half of their users, maybe 20%, but that component is still there, and they are not ready yet to let that go, at least not every one of them. So it's along the same lines, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are a lot of, we were both, it sounds like we were throwing statistics around about, how many people are going to hybrid or how many people are staying on-prem. And a lot of that, you have to consider the audience, right? When you're in a hybrid session, probably everybody's going to raise their hand they're on hybrid. And when you have an on-prem session, everybody's going to say they're on-prem. What I found interesting about that particular session on Wednesday was that it was agnostic. It was to cover Office 365 and on-prem.
Right.
And so,
you'd
I look
expect a mix.
at it more of a mix,
Right.
and it certainly swayed to one side.
So moving from the specifics of Exchange, so this was the first conference that Microsoft brought together all of these various collections of interests. MEC has gone away. It's not coming back, or so we're told. SharePoint conference has gone away. Link conference has gone away, or it'd be called the Skype conference now, et cetera, et cetera. And TechEd, of course, went away. They brought all these people together. Do you think they managed to? Maintain a sense of community here at Ignite?
Oh yeah, my opinion. Sorry, starting off here. Yeah, I believe. The community was definitely here. There was no problem with that.
Okay.
I kind of hung out in the Exchange group of people, and we all saw each other at the same sessions, and would trade stories about the last session, because there were so many sessions that competed with each other. I mean, even my schedule, I had 5 or 6 sessions that I wanted to go to at the same time, so we compared notes about sessions afterwards. And so the community was still there. And people were able to break off and do other things, but I feel like for me that's kind of a disappointment of a mega conference like this, is there are so many Exchange sessions that I want to go to. And I had the opportunity to do that when I was at MEC, and I didn't have to compete with my Windows Server 10 sessions and Hyper-V and Nano Server.
So it's the leak over of all the other technologies that attract you, and you want to go to there, and then...
Exactly. I used TechEd last year to do ADFS and Azure AD Premium sessions.
Yes.
I got a tremendous value out of that, more than I normally ever would have gotten from a TechEd. Sorry. Because I was able to attend things that I'm interested in, but are not in my realm of expertise.
Yes.
And so it was eye-opening, and it let me be a better architect.
Yes.
Because I have a more broader view. But here, I'm competing just with Exchange sessions in something like this, right?
Yeah, I thought the Exchange area, the whole Office 365 area, actually in the exhibition hall worked pretty well.
Yeah, and I was surprised how many people were coming up and asking questions. Lots.
The only thing I would say is that I gave this feedback to Microsoft today, is that I felt that there wasn't a single place where people could go for during the entire conference, and they'd know that there will always be like folks of their interest area hanging out to do stuff together.
Yeah.
Maybe the exhibition hall was probably the closest place to it, but I just felt that if they're going to really emphasize the community building side of a massive conference like this, they've got to give people somewhere where they can hang their hat.
I really don't know how well it worked, but they tried to do something for lunches. I don't. You probably didn't
No,
participate
I
in that
avoided the lunches.
in that fine gourmet cuisine. But at the lunch tables, they did it in several different ways. Each day differently. They one day they grouped nationalities together.
Yes.
Another day they grouped it by technology.
Yes.
So there was a big exchange section, and it. I honestly don't know how well it worked because most of the food was inedible, and so I didn't bother. But
it was the lines that got me.
Yeah.
Standing in a line for 3/4 of a mile or whatever it was, just wasn't gonna happen. Anyway,
Yeah.
by the way, I got to say that I was probably too busy.
yeah,
Because
that's
as you
true.
said, there was so many people
Yeah.
to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
so many companies to go and see,
Yeah.
so many sessions that you wanted to get to, and you were constantly
Right.
looking at your watch saying, I'm never going to
Yeah,
miss this session.
it was a week at drinking from the fire hose.
Yeah, so thankfully Channel 9 is there to help us catch up.
Absolutely.
Michael, what do you think?
Well, I think I do have to agree with pretty much everything you said. The networking opportunities that were kind of set out throughout the week during lunch, I don't believe they actually worked. I went over to lunch once, only to find out that there were better places to go. But on Friday,
McDonald's was a better place to go.
McDonald's was really
Yeah.
good. But on Friday I bumped into some fellow countrymen, which I didn't know they were here. So the idea they had to group people by nationality, I think, was a little bit flawed because no one knew that there were other people there. And
You mean the Belgian table wasn't going to be huge?
well, apparently there are about 100 Belgians here.
That's half the country.
That's half of our country. Wow. So you would expect that you would bump into people, and that is actually one of my complaints. I remember preparing for Ignite and talking to a bunch of people and saying to one another, you know what, we'll bump into one another throughout the week. Well, with 23,000 people running around, it is actually really, really hard to do that.
Faces
Whereas
just merge into that
Yeah.
crowd. Huh?
exactly. And at
A
Mac,
sea of geeks.
on the other
Sea
hand,
of geeks.
it was really easy to bump into someone else that you
Oh,
that
yeah.
you wanted to talk to. So, I mean, that's where the scale of Ignite is a huge letdown, I'd say. That and the lines everywhere. Lines to get a bus, to get a cab, to get food.
To go to the bathroom.
To go to the bathroom, to get to a session. And,
Get out of a session.
to get out of a session, yes, and to get from one session to the other one, because one
That's
thing
something I think
believe,
they'll have to really
Yes.
look at next
Yeah.
year. My gosh, sprinting across that concourse.
And it will be here in Chicago next
Oh
year.
yes, it will be. Yes, we'll
Yeah.
come back to that in just a minute. But do you think? I mean, generally speaking, this conference may have had its flaws, but it worked.
Oh,
Is that fair to say?
I would agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had flaws. but it
Yeah,
worked.
one other aspect of it, though, that and this is not going to change unless they were to go back to the little conferences. But as an architect who works for a consulting company, to bring our team here, we have to pretty much shut down business for a week,
Yes.
as opposed to letting the Link guys go to or Skype guys go to their conference
Yeah.
and the Exchange guys go to theirs. So, and System Center and AD,
and everything else.
yeah, so that is, it makes me wonder or worry about whether I'll be able to attend next year because it's hard to get all of our company to shut down like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So next year is back here in Chicago.
Yes, yeah. Have they announced the date?
they
They have announced the date,
May
9 to
9th.
9 to 13.
Okay, I knew that, but I wasn't sure if it
Yes,
had been announced, so I wasn't going to
Oh,
say.
it's been on many websites
Oh,
at
okay,
this
good.
point in time, so I think we're perfectly safe with that one. Same conference center,
Yes.
same everything. Is it?
Well, I don't know if it'll be the same of everything, but hopefully the thing that I'm hopeful for is that next year since it's going to be at the same place, they're going to get some feedback on what worked and what didn't.
Yes.
And they will be able to improve or
Yes.
change the things that needed to be changed. And they're working with the same venue. When you get that kind of feedback and you go to a different venue, it
Yes.
doesn't scale right, or
Right.
things just don't work out right. So,
Right.
so they have every opportunity.
So this was a dry run for next year.
Yeah, a moist run.
Okay, well, on that note, I think we'll have to say goodbye from Chicago before Jeff gets us into any more trouble. Thanks very much for listening, and stay in contact with Eno Software.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.